Hello and welcome back to Lap Down Podcast, the home of mediocre Formula One chat with myself, Dan, and Alex. And Alex, do you know what? I don't know what you're up to, but I'm on to you. Something's going on up in Northamptonshire. Stefano has emailed me and he said, could you just try and keep this pesky Australian under wraps because he's ruining things on race days. But congratulations for winning another Blue Flag Award. I don't know how you managed to predict that one.
The thing is, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're listening. Hi, we're back again. They keep letting us back. It's because we decide.
Because we hold the keys.
I don't think anyone will ever top that blue flag now. Because if we defined blue flags as someone's just having a bit of a stinker of a weekend for whatever reason, the bloke had his car stolen. Like, you're not going to get a worse weekend than, oh, what happened? Oh, well, my car was stolen. I didn't get to race. Oh, that sucks. Like, did the police catch him? Oh, no. My own teammate stole it. Like, I mean, I'm so proud of myself. I'm almost scared for next week's pod now when I have to do another prediction because I don't want to spoil the race for people. It's just, what's the point?
Could you use it for, I don't know, maybe good for a change rather than just evil?
So you're suggesting that there's a Mr. MV that needs something waved at him next week. We'll see.
Ironically, you'd have won that one as well.
Shock. I know what I'm doing.
You could give Max your Blue Flag Award between now and July, and he would still go on and win the World Championship anyway.
Yeah.
All it would do is actually make sure that we as Formula One fans had slightly better, more enjoyable Sundays and a Formula One season because he would then need to do some catching up later on in the year.
Yeah. What I'll say while we're on the topic of Max, there'll be a bit of Max chat up the top here. So last week we discussed what could Max do if he was in Sauber, and you made what I thought was potentially a relatively safe pick of he'd get it up to 6th. And according to the internet, you could fuck off. Because according to the internet, the driver doesn't matter. It's all the car. Or that Sauber is so bad that you just, how dare you? But the comments seem to land in one of two camps. Either, what are you all talking about? Max is incredible. Of course he would. Or, has Dan ever watched Formula One? What's he on about? He's not even scoring points. And it's in the middle. I can't remember who it was. I can't shout him out. I don't know if they're listening to the pod. But someone said that you lost all credibility with that comment.
That was it. That was my favourite.
Wonderful, because if we have credibility, then we're flying. This is already a success, this whole project.
Yeah. I think like the amazing thing is the person that said that would never have listened to one of these podcasts / watched one of those clips in any of the previous other ones. So at no point have I built up any credibility with, I'm just going to call him Stephen. I don't know whether it was Stephen. But Stephen, I've never built up any credibility with him, but apparently I've lost all of it because I still think it's a relatively kind of sane point.
The bloke has lost 2 races in about 15 years. I think he's pretty good.
I still don't think it's an overly outlandish comment. Like, top 6?
And this leans on to the first topic of discussion, I suppose, but the bloke still managed to lead a lap with one of his brakes still on. He's physically handicapping himself now, and he still didn't get past for 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
Come
he
on.
accelerated off the line with his handbrake on.
With 3 wheels and a handbrake on.
Still pulled away from Carlos. A new lightweight Superleggera Carlos Sainz, which we will talk about later as well. But yeah, honestly, like, I don't know. I mean, it's nice, isn't it? You know what? It was quite nice to actually see the TikTok run numbers. That was quite good. But if you are a TikToker person and you do like this, you like listening to this, you can find it on TikTok, and there's best bits. And sometimes, actually, and more often than not, the comments are better than the content.
Yeah. Yeah, usually. We're not the funny ones. We just give the opportunity for the community to be funny. I also did an incredible meme, and if you see memes on there, 9 times out of 10 they're coming from me because I'm the meme king. But, I mean, flying. Everything's flying. This is going well.
It's a meme.
It's a meme, but it's fun to say meme.
Just checking.
That's all I've got. So, Australia, this week's episode, by the way, because we've got into a bit of a standard 2-week routine now before we go to Suzuka, we'll have a little bit of a recap pod this week, and then we'll be back next week, and we'll look ahead to Japan next week. So we're looking back for the entirety of today's pod to the first actual race of 2024. And wasn't it nice to actually have one?
It was. It was nice. I mean, it was still kind of boring up the front because Carlos just drove away this time. He didn't drive away as far, but that is what Formula One is, isn't it? And we spoke about it at Jeddah. These cars, they can't follow each other. They've ruined it. They've broken it. It doesn't work anymore. And we need some new regulations, or we need some incredibly creative way of making this sport more fun, because it's not really working. And it highlighted quite brilliantly, really, by the time that the race came around to the end, which again we'll talk about, where George got a little bit close to the back of a Aston Martin and ended up upside down.
Yeah, which was clearly Fernando's fault. I mean, I feel a little bit hypocritical because we have talked on this pod before about the fact that we need to applaud Red Bull, Adrian Newey, Horner, all of them, the whole team, and Max Verstappen for what they've achieved in that car. And we still do. But also, I have never fist pumped harder than when I heard Martin Brundle go, "Is that smoke coming out of the Red Bull?" Martin, give you a hot tip.
Please,
I had just seen what I thought was smoke coming out of the Red Bull, and I thought, is that a little lock-up, or is there a little... Hang on. And then I feel like I clocked it quicker than Martin
coming
did.
out the end of your penis.
Like that, all smoke coming everywhere. Because as soon as you saw that, it's like, we are so back. Like, even if it wasn't terminal, right? Even if it was a small issue, like a tear-off caught in the brake duct, tear-off's a whole other issue, but tear-off caught in the brake duct, I mean, it overheated for a while, they had to pull him in early, rip it out or whatever. Great. That's all I needed, was just a bit of Mario Kart Jeopardy. And we got it. Look, it's unfortunate for Max. I did feel ever so slightly bad for him for like a fraction of a second, couple of meters, and then we got over it. But it was just, you saw that happen and you thought, hello, this next 90 minutes is new now. This is uncharted territory. I wonder what will happen. And being able to think, I wonder what will happen, was a lovely thing.
It was nice, wasn't it? It was refreshing. Like one of those deliciously cold Fosters that they would have been drinking in the grandstands. It was nice. It was lovely. And I didn't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning because, well, I haven't quite got to that level of kind of insanity yet. But I did watch it at about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. So I was still pretty early doors, kind of before things had been spoilt for me. And yeah, as you said, it was refreshing. It was nice. And I think almost the biggest takeaway was the fact that, it was nice to see that Red Bull is not like 100,000,000 super percent of completely untouchable. There might be things that maybe kind of don't go, yeah, okay, it was a freak incident. And I don't think his handbrake's going to get stuck on every week and it's going to cause that big of an issue. But it just left you. It left you with a little nugget, a little glimmer of hope. And I mean, if you haven't got hope, what are you doing it for?
Which part of the hope as well for me comes from, and I don't want this to become a pile-on, but Checo made absolutely no impression on the race from 6th whatsoever. Like, which brings back to this whole thing that car is not unbeatable. That car is in an unbeatable partnership currently. Because it wasn't like Checo got stuck in a DRS chain and couldn't brake it or whatever. Like, he was a normal car. A good car, top 5, top 6 car, not an unbeatable car. So it's nice, that it's also, I feel much better that it happened to Max and not Checo. I would have felt a little bit sadder if Checo had left the brakes on. It was nice that it mixed it up. But go Carlos, I'll say that as well. Go on, my son. Like,
up the Carlos.
You know, nobody wants you next year. You're a little bit of a lost, sad puppy. I mean, everyone wants you next year. Specifically, Maranello doesn't want you. But, like, excellent. Because the bloke, and I said it at the time, he is the one that got the most screwed over by that whole thing. It wasn't Toto and Mercedes. It was Carlos Sainz, because he's done very little wrong in his time at Ferrari. Okay, he's not absolutely blown it away, but he's not really put a foot out of place for the tools he had. And it's nice that he's now, actually getting a chance to sort of blossom and be the belle of the ball all of a sudden.
Yeah. Side note, I mean, how far off the pace, how many days behind the leader would Checo finish in a Sauber? But anyway, Yeah, I think brilliant. One thing I would say is I don't necessarily think Ferrari don't want Carlos. I think it's a case of that when Lewis Hamilton comes knocking on the door and says, "Can I drive your car, please?" without any questions, you hand the keys over. He could do the same at yours. He could do the same at my house. If Lewis Hamilton rang my doorbell right now and said, "Can I have your car keys because I need your car?" I'd go, "Of course you can, Lewis. Go on, done." And I think that's probably what happened. And if anything, Carlos might have handed the keys over. We don't know. But I think that's probably more reality of the situation. I think it would have been the same if Lewis had wanted to go to Red Bull. I think it would have been the same if we wanted to go to Aston. It would have been the same if we wanted to go to Sauber, or Minardi, or Tyrrell, or Stewart, or any of these Formula One teams that have existed in the past. That's just how it worked. But yeah, fair bloody play to him. I mean, a huge effort to come back from a fortnight of kind of being in a hospital bed, recovering from having a fairly kind of important organ kind of ripped out of your gut, and still kind of sporting the bandages as well. Maybe he has found a loophole. Maybe all the Formula One drivers now are going to be queuing up to have their appendix removed, and therefore we're going to see multiple different race winners. And maybe that's what caused Max's brakes to stick on. Maybe that's where the appendix ended up. Maybe
the brake duct.
Maybe Dr. Barbara Buppi in Italy just kind of taped it on the brake duct for him.
What was his name?
Maybe. Who knows? Who?
The doctor?
I'm not saying it again.
What was interesting is the Max situation seemed to, evolve very quickly from there's a little bit of smoke going on to the entire arse of my car is on fire, then exploded on its way into the pit lane in quite a dangerous way. Like, I'm surprised that he wasn't told to sort of don't bring that in the house. Like, it was a little bit of a, dog had killed a bird outside and then suddenly he's trying to drag it back through the back door. You think, you just leave that out there and we'll come and sort of hose it off the patio. Like, it was not ideal to bring a literally exploding car into the most populated area of the racetrack at that point.
Possibly not, but then we know what happened at Monaco last year, and I know it's a different circuit. Probably the last thing Red Bull wanted them to do is get any kind of opportunity for a nice little kind of side angle photograph or a little sneaky kind of upskirt shot that kind of just kind of gave away the game slightly. So I agree with you. I think probably the high-vis wearing health and safety version of the podcast probably says, probably park it up as soon as you possibly can. Whereas the Adrian Newey version of the podcast says, get that bloody thing back here as quick as possible because we don't want these fuckers finding out what's going on.
The ground.
Yes. Yeah. So, unlike George.
Unlike George. I mean, the bloke loves a last lap incident, doesn't he? Like, Georgie boy, come on, mate. I mean, you can't park there, sir. I was happy with that. That was my first thought, was you can't park there. So it was actually quite harrowing hearing like his radio. Like, he was a concerned boy in that car. And I understand it. You are facing, arse up to the world at a relatively quick part of the track through there. What are neither of us claim to be particularly technical experts, but the George Russell situation, red flag, VSC, immediate full safety car, be a race director for a minute.
Yeah.
What should we have seen there and why?
It's such a good question, isn't it? Because it throws back to the whole Abu Dhabi 21 type situation that they've kind of made a rod for their own back slightly. I think it should have been red flagged. I think maybe there was an element of context involved. There was obviously a big gap behind George, wasn't there? Whilst he was in kind of clinging on upside down in that Mercedes, kind of going, I'm upside down, I don't know what's going on. Actually, the engineer was kind of saying, look, you've got a car that's like 15, 20 seconds away from where you are. Like, you're not going to be one of the world's most expensive kebabs anytime soon. And by that time came about, actually, the VSC was there and everybody then had slowed down to that kind of pace. And understandably so, whilst George is kind of pretty vulnerable there, upside down, cheeks up in the air, head down, and all this other stuff. I can understand why he was a little bit nervy. The FIA, they made a rod for their own back, I think, with that Abu Dhabi 21, because I think it probably should have been red flag because somebody's life was in serious danger there. If those cards had fallen down a slightly different way. Unfortunately, they didn't that day, because if a car had come around that corner fairly sharpish, not really worth thinking about. But yeah,
Is there a discussion point to be had that had it have been red flagged, George Russell would have kept his P7 finish, I think, at that point?
Yeah.
Is he entitled to choose, actually, I'm going to end the race right now because I'm quite happy with my P7, please and thank you. We'll have a red flag, thanks, lads. Does this come back to the whole qualifying thing of if you bring out a red flag, you forfeit your best lap at that point, or you forfeit your position in quali? Like, do we need to... Not that I'm suggesting that any driver would choose to put themselves in an upside-down position, but is there a bit of context there from the stewards potentially to go, actually, no, let's VSC this because he sort of deserves to be punished almost?
I think, ironically, now knowing that we know afterwards that Fernando's been given like a 20-second penalty and been deducted a couple of places, and I think with the context that I just mentioned and the fact that actually there was no car near the back of George's Mercedes either, then no. And I think it would be... I know they're pretty clever, these Formula One drivers, and there's been pretty kind of smart incidences in the past with various different things. But to kind of lose your car under braking / throw it into the wall, end up upside down, would be quite an elaborate way of getting things red flagged. I mean, you could just stop.
Oh, I'm not suggesting it was a deliberate move, but it's whether that factored in potentially that the stewards went, no, we don't, like, we've got half a lap left to go here. I think that some of the discussion I saw was that... I think
the other thing as well is you red flag it, you end up with a one-lap shootout after Carlos has led all the way through. Everybody then gets new tyres, a complete lottery again at the end of that like one-lap shootout with 18 cars going crazy. I don't know whether you end up creating a bigger accident that way around.
Well, we saw it last year, didn't we? They restarted it and then we lost another 3 or 4 cars immediately on the restart. I mean, the other angle that I kind of look at it with is that the difference between in the first 10 seconds after a red flag or a VSC being thrown are, I think, for all intents and purposes, the same, right? The driver's foot comes off the accelerator because what they want to do straight away is scrubble their speed off because they've got to get under the delta, and that's going to change. It's going to move quite quickly. And then straight away you're going to have Xavi and all the other engineers on the radio saying, slow down, red flag, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you would like to think that those engineers would feed the same info to the drivers approaching the scene, regardless of... Even if it had been green flags still, you would hope that Bono's straight on the radio going, okay, Lewis, Russell upside down, turn 8. So just left-hand side of the track through there, please. Watch for debris. Like, you'd like to think that no matter what race control chose to do, the teams would have been straight away being like, right, he's not on the racing line, so that helped for a start. He was over sort of, in theory, even if they'd come flying through there, they should have come flying through to his left, which is good. But people going on about how much more dangerous a VRC was than a red flag, I'm not sure if that actually holds much water, because I think that's still on the race engineer, because a red flag can happen for any number of reasons. It might be that someone running on the track is a red flag that's happening in Q1, in Sector 1 and you're in Sector 3. So they still need that contextual information from their engineers. I think they get the same either way. And they still have to trundle past him. And, I think maybe people made a little bit too much of that situation and maybe wanted to paint... People seem to like to jump on the FIA, and I'm not trying to be a sympathiser for the stewards or the FIA or whatever, but they're a little bit like umpires in every sport. They never get applauded when they just do their job well of overseeing that game, but everyone is very quick to attack them when they don't agree with something or something doesn't go their way, and it's almost the easy out to jump on. Like at the minute, hating Daniel Ricciardo on the internet, if you want to gain fake internet points... say something bad about how Daniel Ricciardo's washed, and everyone will pile on because that's the popular thing to do. And I wonder whether there's a little bit of that on the whole red flag. They wanted to take a pop.
The final thing I'd say on it is I don't think it should be the race engineer's job to do that. I think it should fall down at the feet of the race director to make that decision, rather than kind of go, we don't really know what's going on here, but actually there's a Mercedes upside down in the middle of the circuit coming out of turn 7. probably in your best interest to slow down quite a bit and go to the left-hand side of the car or whatever. I don't necessarily think it should be their job to convey that. And finally, I think if it had happened 3 laps earlier, I think it would have been a straight red flag.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, the recovery time on that. They're probably still recovering it now. Like
a lap earlier. I mean, they can't just leave a car upside down in the middle of the circuit with cars kind of trundling around under a VSC. How are they going to recover it? A lap before it would have had to have been a red flag.
Well, Formula E does an interesting thing. We've talked about this. I've tried with Formula E, and I just can't. But Formula E, the race director talks to all teams simultaneously. They have a speak to all button, and they seem to use it a lot. You get a lot of the race director, and I'm assuming it overrides all the other radios, and it's essentially a PA announcement to all cars at once. I don't know if that's a thing. I feel like, I've never heard of it happen. I've never heard of the race director speak directly to a driver before either. They seem to speak to teams. It might happen and we don't hear it, but might be an option.
They outlawed that, didn't they, post 21?
Well, they certainly outlawed the broadcast of it because they all started getting a little bit dramatic. But that might be your other option, as you say. Yeah, absolutely put it on the race director. But if he doesn't have a way to speak to all 20 or all 19 or whatever at once to go red flag straight away. Lads, this is what's happening. Car upside down, turn 8, stick to the left-hand side of the track. I want you at absolute turnover speed.
Yeah.
Done. It's a 7-second message. Yeah, but hey, George is all right. Yeah. George is embarrassed. He's had his trousers pulled down, but apart from that, all's well that ended
Weirdly,
well.
Though, did you see that he was, in his Instagram story, he was right back at work and he was in the simulator doing laps of Albert Park? I don't know. Yeah, he was doing laps of Albert Park, post Albert Park.
Got to be correlation work, surely.
Well, I'm no expert, but I think that horse is probably bolted by now, George. You're probably better off doing Suzuka. But who do you want to talk about next? Do you want to talk about old Logie Bear?
Old Logie Bear. I mean, I feel really bad for the bloke. Like, that's we touched on it earlier, but to have a car stolen, to have your car stolen by your own teammate that's harsh when you're already fighting for your life. You don't need your own team. Not that his team's against him, but you don't need your own team against you as well. The world is already against you.
Yeah. He's not got many fans in Formula One, bless him. Not that I think he's done a great deal wrong. I mean, he's got... It's a fairly similar situation to the Max and Sergio kind of world, isn't it, with Alex and Logan, in the fact that it's obviously not the greatest car, but Alex is clearly a much better driver and gets quite a bit more out of it than what Logan's been able to do. And whatever Logan is able to do, it just clearly isn't enough to even come close to matching what Alex can do. But the first thing I thought when I saw that, when he'd been like ditched out of the race weekend, was, why did Williams re-sign him? If you're 3 races into the 2024 Formula One season, 3 races, and you've already just told this bloke that you're just not up to scratch. You're not good enough to be here and be part of this team. You're almost kind of we're giving you this gig because you bring in a nice bit of sponsorship for us. And actually, if things don't go the way that we want them to, you are out of this door quicker than you can kind of say Michelob Ultra or whatever the sponsor is that you're bringing into the Williams team. And I think I struggled with, because there was a conversation, wasn't there, between Martin and Crofty about reversing Carlos and Charles. Because if Charles had won that race, Charles would have been leading the World Drivers' Championship. And I think Crofty made the point, and it was like, that'd be quite a nice thing, wouldn't it? And Martin Brundle was like, no, don't be stupid.
Yeah,
it's the same
immediately,
vibe.
No. Like, there wasn't even a bit of yes and improv play.
No.
It was no.
It's the same vibe here. We're 3 races in, and I know those points might become super valuable for Williams later on down the lines, which Alex didn't manage to get anyway. But yeah, if you're going to bin him out at the first opportunity, why did you re-sign him in the first place?
I wonder, now I can't remember necessarily, who else was available to them at the end of last year that would be a safer banker? I mean, okay, you could argue Liam Lawson was available-ish. He's not really available, but you could argue that Liam Lawson was on the market if you wanted to throw enough money at him. I dare say he'd turn his back on Red Bull pretty quickly.
Nick, maybe?
Mick, I mean, we saw Mick was a little bit of a liability. Logan, for all his faults, doesn't tend to bin the car massively. No. He doesn't drive it quick enough to bin it. But he sort of keeps all four wheels on the track and goes home at the end of the day. Is where Mick, I think, was maybe trying slightly harder is harsh, but maybe trying a little bit harder, and that would end up on some scrappy moments. And scrappy moments in F1, it's 2 inches, and then that's $2.5 million worth of damage. I wonder as well if there's a little bit of the James Vowles project that he's spoken about a number of times of, I don't care about this year, and to be honest, I don't care about 25. We've got to get our house in order, and we can get our house in order by 26, and we can reset with all the new stuff that comes in, and that's more valuable for us as a team than trying to chase and catch up 24, 25. And I wonder whether Logan was a better the devil choice. He's cheap. He probably pays for himself on sponsorship. For the large part, he keeps it out of the wall. He's a nice guy. We like having him around. He's good for the marketing because he's fit. That's...
Yeah. And he's American as well, which is going to be an invested interest from Liberty.
There's a hope there. And a Doralton American, I think, maybe. And so Doralton probably like that tie-in as well. So I wonder if there's a little bit of that better the devil approach to it. But yeah, I mean, he did very well to stand on the pit wall on race day. I know he would have been told by the PR people, you're standing on the pit wall and you're going to pretend to smile, and if the camera cuts to you, smile and wave at it. But
there's a lot of things to do in Melbourne as well.
He could have gone for so many coffees. Exactly. The footy's back. Could have gone to the AFL. Plenty to do. But
cricket.
Yeah, I feel for him.
Barbecues, punching koalas, the zoo.
All of these things. You don't punch the koalas. They're nice. Beach. Get the rig out.
Beach is good. Surfing.
I don't know if he's loved up, but I'd give you a hot tip. He could have been loved up for a day if he walked around, got the Melbourne beaches, top off. Hi, I'm Logan Sargent. Job done.
He'd probably do okay. Yeah. Swimming with great white sharks.
I don't think, to be honest, Williams had another option. As much as people want to criticise that it's a really harsh option, as you said, no, he didn't get a point, but the only way they were going to get a point was with stupid luck and Australia 2023 style multiple mass pile up and Stephen Bradburying at all of a sudden Logan's P4. Yeah. Or you have to have Alex. He is a considerably better driver that's getting more out of that car. And if you're aiming for P10, he was infinitely more likely to get it. That it's shit in so many ways, but I think it was the correct move.
Yeah. Here's 2 questions for you. One might be fairly simple to answer. First one is there any chance that a decision like that potentially borderline brings the sport into a little bit of disrepute? And secondly, does it happen in any of the other 9 teams on the grid?
Question 1. No, it's a team sport, I would say. And I think if it's no different to team orders and inverting cars, and it's no different to what Haas did with Magnussen, the week before. It's a team sport. We've got 2 horses in this race, and we can use them how we want to use them. So I don't have an issue with it on that front. If anything, I think it almost heightens the sport element. It was a strategy call. In the same way you can offset strategies on tyres, they chose to offset strategies on cars, which was a bold approach. Does anyone else do it? No, because I don't think there's a gap between drivers of that size in any other team. Even the step down from Max to Checo is massive, but Checo will still put it on the podium for you at least. And if he has a good day, he'll win that race for you. I don't think there's any other team that has remotely that gap that it's an option. There's far more trust in those other teams that I just don't think they do it.
I'd have refused point blank. If I was Logan Sargent, I would have sat in that car with my arms crossed and just copped the biggest strop going. And there is no way. If you are taking me out of this car, we're writing this car off as well. Because all of this car, as much of it as I can possibly hold on to, is coming with me. And if you want to get rid of me because you want Alex Albon to drive this car, fine. do it. But Alex Albon can drive what's left of it, similar to what he did with whatever he did to his car in FP1, which I didn't see because that probably happened at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And if I wasn't going to wake up at 4 for the race, I sure as hell wasn't going to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch some installation laps in FP1.
Wasn't I think Max said something to Dutch media, essentially along those lines of, if they'd have said that to me, like they weren't getting the car back, I would have put it in the wall. Like it's quite. Here's a question, probably the final point on it.
Yeah.
Do you think he would have thought that was coming? Do you think Logan saw the thieves in the night coming for his car, or do you think that Logan, it's James phone call would have caught him off guard?
Yeah. I think so.
So you don't reckon it's ever been discussed, like at the start of the year, that like we have a clear number 1, number 2 driver, we will disadvantage you for the advantage of Alex Albon?
Possibly, but I mean that's such an extreme situation.
Step,
I can't believe like that ever would have come up in conversation. Like I'm sure over tea or coffee they would have said, "Oh, just to let you know, Logan, look, Alex is going to get preferential choice on the pit stop, and when we get to Azerbaijan, you're going to have to suck him off down the straight because that's how we're going to try and get Alex into Q2 or whatever." Like that bit I can completely understand, and I'm sure Logan probably kind of went, "Yeah, fine, I get it. Like I'm here to do a job. I'm kind of doing my best with the limited skill set that I've got available to myself." But to have that phone call or WhatsApp, or I mean, to be honest with you, it sounds so kind of backhanded that the first he might have heard about it was like when Twitter kind of announced the fact that he wasn't actually going to be driving it. They didn't even have the bollocks to tell him. So no. And I honestly like how would you even react to that?
Yeah.
Oh, Alex, hi, it's Dan from Williams, mate. Oh, how are you doing? Yeah, just to let you know, your teammate wrote his car off yesterday. Well, funny thing, we didn't actually bring enough bits to fix it. So we have fixed it. How have you fixed it then? Well, we've just given him your car. And you go, what?
Oh, no.
Really? And you go,
yeah.
What do you want me to do for the rest of the weekend? It's Friday morning.
Here's a question, just to double down on your question. And it's a slight hypothetical because I don't think it actually happens in the real world. But given the context surrounding it, right? We are 2/3 of the way through the season. The same thing happens, but this time George Russell has absolutely Jolly Rogered his Mercedes, but it's in Vegas and they couldn't bring the spare chassis. There was a logistical issue that they didn't have one there. Do you tell 7.5-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, you're leaving us, screw you, get out your car?
I mean, by that point in the season, Lewis might have had so much of that Mercedes, he might give the keys to George, like without even any kind of questions. But I'd suggest no. Oh, I think it probably has opened a can of worms for Codemasters, though, because when you listen to kind of Reddit threads or read through Reddit threads about what they want in the next F1 version of the game, and they want the opportunity to what do they want? Things like, to have kind of sticky wheel nuts or whatever in the game, and this, that, and the other. I mean, to kind of throw that into a My Team career mode, I mean, Christ knows what the developers...
stolen your car. Love it. Also, and to finish up, right, because I think we've done Australia a good justice here, but there is a surprise for me in the World Drivers' Championship standings, right? Because there is a driver ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the standings.
There's probably a few
that I cannot imagine having ever seen ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the World Drivers' Championship standings. Lewis Hamilton is P10. Who is P9 in the 2024 World Drivers' Championship?
Okay, so I haven't looked. I can see so far down as Lando in 6th.
Yeah.
So my head's kind of saying it's either Lance, it's either Yuki, or it's Zhou. And I know that Sauber, as I learnt on TikTok the other week, is is slower than a slow thing on a slow day, so it probably isn't him.
I can tell you that Joe's scored no World Championship points this year.
Yeah, I'm going to say Lance is in P9.
Lance is in P9, Yuki's in P11. Thanks for listening to the Lap Down podcast. We might as well all go home because, wow.
What a day.
What a day. But thank you all for listening to what is now episode 7, I think, of the Lap Down podcast. The numbers are getting up there real quickly. As ever, if you've enjoyed this, you should give it 5 stars, because then maybe the podcast platforms will show it to someone else and maybe they'll like it as well. And if you think you've got a friend that might like it, send it to them. Maybe they'll like it. You can follow us on X and Insta and TikTok at LapdownPod. You get little clips on YouTube, and we've started also uploading the full-length pods on YouTube as well. And soon, when I've done a template for them, you'll be able to watch the full-length pods on there if you want to put us on your telly and have us in 55 inches of beauty and glory. If they'd like to follow you, Dan, where can they find you?
On the internet at Dan
On the
Jads.
internet.
Just don't tell me that I've lost all my credibility. It's heartbreaking to read that.
I still am loving the fact that you had some to lose. Just lean on that. Lean on that
Certainly
all
not
along.
in this sport. Not much in others either, to be fair. What about you, sir? Where are you?
If you'd like to watch me play video games on the internet, you can do that at twitch.tv/Hey Look It's Alex. If you want to see me on other platforms, it's Alex Type That on Insta and X. And that's us. So we'll be back next week with a little preview of Suzuka, one of my favourite tracks. I like driving the track in the game. I think it's a pleasant little bit of racing. So yeah, we'll see you all next week. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Bye.